Now the big question here is, will her libido on this protocol match your insane Trimbolone sandwich libido that makes you want to have angry sex 24/7? Vigorous Steve here. So in the previous video discussing libido, which was mostly aimed towards men, a lot of you guys asked in the comment section if I could make a similar video aimed towards women. So here we are, we're going to discuss a couple options to improve the sex drive and libido of your girlfriend or wife, at least to a point where it's going to match your libido after watching that libido video, which dropped a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't watched it yet, I'll link it at the end of this one. And we're going to discuss these options without turning your girlfriend or wife into your boyfriend or husband, even though we will be discussing a couple of performance-enhancing drugs, which could be considered virilizing. But you guys know me, I always keep it very modest, especially when it comes to female-related PED content. So I'm going to do my best to give you guys everything that I know about how to improve the libido of your significant other. And before we do, please like the video, leave a comment for the algorithm, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And guys, libido-related content is always very hard to monetize, so a couple extra comments go a very long way to really boost the algorithm. As we could see from the previous video, you guys really did your part. I can't thank you guys enough. That video got almost 30,000 views already, and maybe we can get this video up to 30,000 views or even more. Also, share this video with your friends that are in a relationship, obviously, so they can improve the libido of their girlfriend. Not your friends that are single because their left hand or their flashlight is basically always ready when they are. Share this video with your girlfriend. Share this video with your girlfriends if you're not in a mutually exclusive relationship just quite yet. So everybody that you have on standby for booty call can have the libido that is up to par with yours. Now, all of the things that I discussed in the previous video still apply. So if your girlfriend is highly stressed, due to whatever reason, her libido is not going to be that favorable. If your girlfriend has a poor diet model or is in severe caloric restrictive states, her libido is not going to be as good as yours, especially if she's dieting and you're in the off season with calories and nutrients galore. If your girlfriend doesn't respect you for whatever reason, some of which could be your own fault, which we'll address in this video, but if she has daddy issues or she's been listening to Beyonce a little bit too much, and all my women are independent, blah, 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 blah. This is a huge issue with society. Nowadays, we could make a whole separate YouTube channel just dedicated to these kinds of issues, which there are plenty of YouTube channels out there already addressing these particular topics. So long story short, your girlfriend doesn't respect you for whatever reason. If you can't make amends, she holds grudges, move on. And this brings me to another topic. If you're into the health and fitness scene, you pay attention to your diet, your nutrition, your supplementation, you're going to the gym, you're doing your cardio, you have a primed physique, and you always pay attention to your physique, you need to have a girlfriend that does the exact same. Otherwise, her libido will never, ever, ever, ever match yours. Why? You're paying attention to your physique. You're in a place where you're highly outgoing, talkative. That's what the fitness industry is ultimately about. People who go to the gym frequently pay attention to their health and their nutrition. They look better, they feel better, they have more confidence, they're more outgoing. And if your girlfriend or wife doesn't do any of that, all that creates is friction and jealousy. You have more libido, but you also have more confidence. You're not at home all the time, you're at the gym. And if you stay 30 minutes later, your wife is going to wonder, like, where's my husband? Is he cheating on me? This creates friction. You're better off moving on. Really, I'm dead serious here, guys. I've had relationships in the past where a girl was not really into health and fitness or maybe did some sort of other sports, but kind of half-assed, not really pay attention to her nutrition. And those relationships always failed because I was very involved with bodybuilding and fitness in general. My energy was outstanding and hers was not. So long story short, if you want your relationship to be successful and last a very long time where the libido is pretty equal, get a girlfriend that goes to the gym just like you do. Get a girlfriend that has the confidence just like you do. Get a girlfriend that pays attention to her nutrition just like you do. Get a girlfriend that is on top of her shit just like you are. And then this relationship and the libido throughout the entire duration of the relationship will be fucking sweet. I guarantee it. So this is right? You might have to step back a little bit from the situation that you're in if your girlfriend's libido is not up to par with yours. And honestly, guys, it might be better to break off the relationship preventatively. Otherwise, you're going to be dealing with this libido discrepancy for the rest of the duration that your relationship is going to last, which it's inevitably going to fail anyway due to this issue. Take your libido, this insanely heightened libido that you got from watching that video a couple weeks ago, take it to the girl that follows your lifestyle closely, that matches yours, so she's deserving of the D repeatedly. All right. First things first, what can you do to optimize the libido of your girlfriend? If she's on birth control, first, there's going to be a libido unfavorable hormone balance for the 21 days that she's taking the birth control pills. And whether that's a synthetic progestin single ingredient birth control or a combination birth control with a synthetic progestin and ethinyl estradiol, in both cases, you see that the libido is severely diminished. And all the woman can do is think about eating food because that's a side effect of birth control pills. Then when she gets off the birth control pills to have her period, there's severe hormonal imbalance as well. And let's be honest, not everybody is man enough to plow the Red Sea. So get your partner off the oral BCP ASAP and look into a copper intrauterine device, copper IUD, instead as your main form of a contraceptive. Don't look into condoms, don't look into pulling out, even though pulling out might have a bit of a success rate, especially if you're taking steroids and you're azoospermic, you're not producing sufficient amounts or any kind of sperm for fertilization. Still, pulling out and using condoms specifically is highly unenjoyable for you and your partner and still not 100% foolproof. If you're looking into a main source of a contraceptive, I can personally highly recommend a copper IUD, especially if you're both into health and fitness. In this case, besides birth control and a hormonal IUD, you don't get the burden of hormones. And now you can actually improve her hormone balance for libido favorable ranges, just like you did with your HRT protocol. And keep in mind that the HRT protocol, which I discussed in the libido video aimed towards men, contains ACG. So this libido favorable PED stack is not going to make you azoospermic. If anything, it's going to improve your fertility or at least sustain it while you're using performance-enhancing drugs. So there needs to be a contraceptive in place, again, in the form of a copper IUD. It is of note that an intrauterine device is something you can actually feel during intercourse, so you might have to get used to that. On the other side, it might give you positive affirmation that you're all the way to the end when you're pushing against the cervix, so it might even heighten your overall sexual experience. If your girlfriend or wife decides to go with a copper IUD, make sure she supplements with zinc picolinate or zinc bisglycinate, 25 to 50 milligrams per day, depending on how she responds to this increased copper burden within her uterus. Again, some women need 50 milligrams zinc per day because they're deficient in zinc. So depending on the state of health that your girlfriend or wife was in, 25 to 50 milligrams zinc per day on top of the copper IUD, because zinc and copper use the same metabolic processes to be absorbed and excreted. Zinc also has the added benefit that it acts as a aromatase inhibitor, helps to manage estrogen levels, is certainly very beneficial for overall testosterone production, and might also help with acne formation. And just like with men, I feel that supplemental dinyl methane is highly beneficial for the estrogen balance within women. You can also look into calcium D-glucarate to help excrete some of the estrogen metabolites or phytoestrogens from the body, so the overall burden of estrogens is reduced. I would say that 100 milligrams dinyl methane in the morning and again in the evening is beneficial for the balance between estrone, estradiol, and estriol. And 500 milligrams calcium D-glucarate in the morning and again in the evening is optimal to help excrete all of the metabolites and all of the phytoestrogens from the body. So now that we have our estrogen balance carefully regulated and libido favorable, we can finally look into the testosterone levels and raise those to libido favorable ranges as well. Now, when you look at the reference range of women compared to men obviously go up to 800 to 1,000 nanograms per deciliter. But women are far lower, 60, 75 nanograms per deciliter. For menopause, postmenopause, the TRT for women is generally brought up to 100, 150, sometimes even 250 nanograms per deciliter. But I'm going to assume that your girlfriend or your wife is not in postmenopausal territory yet. So you have to keep that into consideration. I would look to bringing her total testosterone levels up to the top of the reference range, whether that's 60, 75, or slightly supraphysiological to 100 nanograms per deciliter, I feel that that's reasonably safe and sustainable for longer periods of time without risking short-term or permanent virilization. And again, if you see any hints or signs of virilization early on, you take a step back off the protocol that you're doing right now and reassess and see which direction you want to go to. The first thing you can look into is supplemental DHEA. A lot of women will reach top of the reference range testosterone levels without too much significant changes to their estrogen levels with 12.5 to 25 milligrams supplemental DHEA. So that's very similar to the dosages I would recommend for men. Now, whereas with men on hormone replacement therapy, their HPTA is shut down and their DHEA and pregnenolone production within the adrenal glands is severely diminished. But in this case with women, their HPOA, the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis, isn't downregulated because she's not taking exogenous testosterone. She's just taking supplemental DHEA, which is a step earlier in the hormonal cascade, at a very low and conservative dose just to bring her total testosterone levels up to the top of the reference range. Whether that's 60, 75, or 100 nanograms per deciliter, she'll have to make sure that her LH and FSH levels are not budging on this protocol and also make sure that her estrogen, estradiol, estrone, and estriol levels aren't budging by supplementing with DHEA. 12.5 milligrams split, 6.25 milligrams AM and PM, for many women are already going to be a game changer regarding their libido, raising their testosterone levels quite significantly. And of course, DHEA and DHEA sulfate levels are going to go up. And in this context, we're not supplementing with pregnenolone because in most cases, the progesterone, the allopregnenolone, and all of the cascading hormones afterwards are in the normal sufficient ranges. So women, I would only start off with a low dose of DHEA to improve her total testosterone levels and thus her libido when estrogen management is already in place. Later on, if you see that pregnenolone levels or progesterone levels are a little bit middle top of the reference range and you would like to increase them, okay, look into 10 milligram, 12.5, 25 milligram pregnenolone supplementation on top of the DHEA. But I would rather consider oxandrolone, Anavar, instead of pregnenolone. Why? Because 2.5 milligrams Anavar, if it's pharmaceutical and legit, is anabolic, but it can also improve her libido with a little bit of DHT-like effect. You have the DHEA to increase total testosterone levels, ultimately resulting in higher DHT levels as well. But since oxandrolone is a DHT derivative, she might get some DHT-like effects, which could ultimately heighten her libido, assuming that she is in a caloric surplus, taking some zinc and managing her estradiol levels accordingly. 2.5 milligrams oxandrolone per day is quite sustainable. I know many female competitors or many female gym goers who run 2.5 milligrams oxandrolone year-round without any signs of virilization. And yes, this is pharmaceutical-grade oxandrolone year-round, but a very low dose of 2.5 milligrams. A lot of the competitors are going to say that 2.5 milligrams is not going to do anything, but we're taking this in the context of heightening one's libido, not in the context of building phenomenal amounts of muscle mass. I already made several videos about how to improve the muscularity of female competitors. I'll link them at the end of this one. And again, 2.5 milligrams oxandrolone is a great starting point with DHEA and perhaps clenbuterol and growth hormone and some other anabolic aids in place which are not inherently virilizing. You can create a phenomenal physique. And again, you can always increase the dose. Maybe you need to increase the dose of oxandrolone later on when there's a caloric deficit, in which case libido is going to go down anyway, but we're increasing the oxandrolone dose to sustain or build more muscularity. So this very simple protocol of diethylmethane, calcium diglucarate, DHEA, and Anavar, in more cases than not, is sufficient to heighten your girlfriend or wife's libido to match yours. Now the big question here is, will her libido on this protocol match your insane Trimbolone sandwich libido that makes you want to have angry sex 24/7? Probably not, but we haven't dived into the PT141, we haven't dived into the Semax or the oxytocin yet, which will all work for women as well. But the dosages are going to be a little bit less compared to the dosages I recommended for men. So Vyleesi was actually developed, PT141 bromolanotide, was actually developed to help with the libido of women. So I'm not going to go through the entire explanation process again. Instead, we're just going to list off the dosages because, again, I already went through all of the explanations in the previous libido video. Instead of 0.5 to 1 milligram PT1 for 1, half the dose, 0.25 to 0.5 milligrams PT1 for 1 before intercourse. And it might take a couple days before she gets a libido boosting effect from this melanocortin receptor agonist / antagonist. So you might have to slowly introduce this at 0.25 milligrams per day or multiple times per week until she gets a noticeable effect. 4 to 6 hours later in the day, after which you can go to a maintenance dose or an acute dose, right? Depending on your preference, 0.25 to 0.5 milligrams, about 1 hour before intercourse. This is not enough effect to get nauseous, not enough effect to get flushing, but enough of an effect to heighten her libido quite substantially. Still, it doesn't come close to a combination of Semax and oxytocin. 300 micrograms Semax intranasally once or twice per day to improve DHEA sensitivity and help with overall anxiolytic and calming effects. Again, it will be a severely heightening effect, but from my experience, the second best thing that a woman can take to heighten her libido almost acutely is intranasal oxytocin, and the dosages are going to be very similar compared to that of men. 10 to 50 IUs oxytocin intranasally about an hour pre-intercourse, limited to 2 or 3 times per week because there is a little bit of a tolerance build up with frequent use. What I do notice with women, or from the women that I talk to that take oxytocin intranasally, a higher dose seems to work better because 100 IUs oxytocin intranasally induces a little bit of flushing. And due to this flushing, you get a little bit of a brain rinse, which is, of course, complete bro science. But this flushing effect takes all the worries and the stress and whatever is bothering them away, allowing her to get into the mood a little bit more freely. Multiple orgasms approved. Now, of course, PT1 for 1, Semax, and oxytocin is not going to be that pronounced compared to something like GHB or MDMA, which seems to work quite well for some females, but those drugs aren't very sustainable and they will detract from your health. So if you want to go to that route, I'm sure you can find a video discussing many protocols about how to use GHB or MDMA for sexual purposes, but I'm not going to discuss those in this video. What I will discuss is the first best thing a woman can take to heighten her libido. And again, assuming that she's into health and fitness and has a little bit of experience with performance-enhancing drugs in the past, the best thing is raw testosterone powder sublingually, 20 minutes, 30 minutes before expecting to have intercourse. Now, guys, fair warning here. Don't go sprinkle your dick in raw testosterone powder, waiting for her to absorb that sublingually during a blowjob. That's not cool. That's like roofies. Don't be that guy. Talk about it first. Give it as a recommendation. Let her do the research on what pure testosterone powder will do to her hormone balance acutely, because some of that will convert into estradiol, worsening the estradiol burden if she's not on top of her diindole methane and calcium deglucarate to help with estrogen balance, like we discussed earlier. Discuss it, give it as a recommendation, and start off low, 2 milligrams sublingually, 30 minutes before getting busy. It will make a huge difference, especially when combined with intranasal oxytocin at a higher dosage. It's something she'll have to experiment with. If she wants to start with 1 milligram testosterone sublingually, go right ahead. From what I've heard, that doesn't really make that much of a difference from 2 milligrams and upwards, up to 5 milligrams sublingual testosterone. And if you want to experiment with 2 to 5 milligrams sublingual dihydrotestosterone, or a combination of 2 milligrams testosterone and 2 milligrams DHT sublingually, I'll leave it up to you and your partner. Give it some thought. Give it some examination further beyond this video. For her, it will be a very noticeable effect, a very enjoyable effect from what I've heard discussing this protocol with women. But again, more frequent use could lead to virilization. So instead of doing TRT for women, look into DHEA supplementation, perhaps with a low dose, a sustainable dose of oxandrolone on top, both at low and effective dosages enough to heighten her libido and get a little bit of an anabolic response out of that. and then use the PT141, the Semax, the oxytocin, and perhaps sublingual raw testosterone or raw DHT or a combination thereof intermittently. Intermittent use of oxytocin and DHT or testosterone powder is very, very beneficial, but I would limit the testosterone to maybe once, at maximum twice per week. Because again, if you're going with 5 milligrams testosterone powder, that's 10 milligrams per week, on top of the DHEA and the oxandrolone, that's more androgenic burden leading potentially to virilization. So consider it a birthday present or maybe a Sunday afternoon thing, when you really want to go for it because you finished all your work and there's no stress and all of the chores are done and you have half the day of free time for yourself to get busy in the bedroom. Right? In those instances, it might be beneficial, but pure testosterone powder and pure DHT powder sublingually is not, can't emphasize it enough, not for daily use if you're a woman. And I really hope this helps for both you and your girlfriend, your wife, your significant other. I think these last 3 videos about libido should solve most of the problems that are out there nowadays. And if you feel that there's still libido-related content out there for me to discuss, let me know down below in the comment section. I will gladly make another video about it because, well, libido-related issues are very cumbersome. I completely understand. There's so many issues that can manifest. I saw some people have permanent issues from megadosing the letrozole, aromacin, or arimidex. So if some of you guys are suffering from post-aromatase inhibitor syndrome, let me know down below and I will do my best to make a dedicated video about that and how to fix that accordingly. For now, I'll leave it here. Thank you guys so much for watching. You can find everything that I'm associated with down below in the YouTube description section. All of my sponsors and affiliates, they all have discount codes, so you can save yourself some money while shopping online. I have more discount codes on my website at vigorsteve.com/articles, where you can find a lot of free articles for your reading pleasure. If you still have issues with your libido and you need some personalized advice, contact me for consultations. I'll gladly help you through it and give you some more personalized information to fix that ASAP. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at VigorSteve. Vigorous crew, you guys know what to do. A front double bicep for you guys. These are the biceps she tells you not to worry about. The biceps she's thinking about when you're banging her up the ass. You're welcome.